The following is a production of the University of Minnesota, driven to discover.
Hi, this is David Arundel, your host for the Peer Assisted Learning Groups podcast. Thanks for spending some time with us today. This episode introduces us to Sam, who's a student study group leader. She is studying physics and astronomy. Her future career aspiration is to become a physics professor and a researcher. Her hobbies include running, basketball, poetry, and jamming to music. I was very interested in how she broke down the various challenges of the physics course that she supports. It's clear that her experience as a MavPASS leader will be very helpful with her future career as a professor. I wish I had had this experience before I started my teaching career 40 years ago. This episode completes a 6-part series featuring the MavPASS program at Minnesota State University at Mankato. MavPASS is their institutional name for supplemental instruction. Let's listen in on our conversation. Well, excellent. We're here with Sam from Minnesota State University, Mankato, another part of the team who agreed to engage in these short little conversations. So, welcome, Sam.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, well, why don't you just tell us just a little bit about yourself so we can kind of know Sam. I saw a preview of you up on the website for the university, and it said that you like running, basketball, poetry, and jamming to music. What else can you tell me about Sam for our audience?
That about sums it up, but of course there's a little bit more. In academics, I am a sophomore here at Mankato, studying physics and astronomy, which is always exciting, keeps me on my toes.
Well, you must be pretty excited about the new rover on the surface of Mars.
I am, actually. It's kind of exciting to be able to see geology that we've never seen before. I used to be a geology nerd as well. My brother is an aerospace engineer, so I get to hear about all that good stuff as well.
Okay, well, very nice. What are your plans after college is over with for employment?
More college for me. My plan right now is to get a PhD, leaning either towards astrophysics or particle physics. Not quite sure where I want to go yet, but I will have plenty of schooling left. Probably 5 years in a PhD, maybe a postdoc, but the end goal is to be a physics professor.
What made you decide to become involved as a study group leader at Mankato and become a MavPASS leader?
My freshman year was actually the first year that this program was running. So I got the chance to have a physics MavPASS leader in my introductory physics course freshman year. I had taken the course before, but I was very confused. I was like, who is this random guy who kind of sticks out? But then he introduced himself and explained the process of MavPASS. And then at the end of the year, the professor asked if I'd like to join. And so I kind of looked into what it was. I tutored in high school a little bit here and there. And overall, I'm just a big nerd, especially when it comes to physics. I definitely couldn't stay away.
Well, and I just heard you say there that you've done tutoring before, which is a real common theme of a lot of college study group leaders, is that they either did it formally or informally. And some of them say that they did tutoring with their other brothers and sisters.
I have to say, my siblings never needed it, but I did have some friends who could use the help in math. And I always enjoyed just being able to kind of get that teaching that I've kind of always wanted.
It sounds like you've targeted yourself well for your future career. Identify which course is it that you're supporting and what makes that course challenging for many students.
So I support right now Physics 221, which is the higher level of calculus-based introductory physics. It's definitely a tough course. I think we have a DFW rate of about 40% in that course. Which is the reason that we support it. We're trying to get that down. Physics is obviously very daunting to many students, mostly because it's just really a different way of thinking. When you're taking other courses that maybe are less math-based, they're a little bit more straightforward in the sense that there's a right answer or maybe one or two ways to get there. But physics is looking at words and trying to assign numbers and ideas, knowing definitions and equations. There's just a lot of steps and different ways of thinking that take a while to learn and practice.
Now, did I hear that you also talked about it was the math component of physics that also made it challenging?
Yes, absolutely. Physics in my brain is just applied math. When people say it's a science, I kind of chuckle because it's basically just math. Yes, the math is definitely in this course. We do a little bit of calculus, so it does get challenging there for a lot of students. And that's what separates it from the 211 that's lower, which is still very hard because it's a physics course. But that added math definitely makes it more challenging.
Well, thinking about this online environment you're working in, which is the most challenging thing that I can imagine, what are a couple of your favorite learning activities that have been, you think, the most useful for students during this very difficult environment with the pandemic?
It's definitely been a 180 with being completely online. I think one of the things that MavPASS has been great about with being online is kind of getting that face to face sort of a human interaction. So, one of my favorite things to do is kind of play off of that, especially at the beginning when I'm getting to know students, they're getting to know me, we're getting comfortable. I love to, I don't want to say embarrass myself, but have quite a bit of fun. My favorite thing to do is just as an opener, I introduce myself and then I ask them very random, nothing to do with physics questions. One of my favorites is asking, is a hot dog a sandwich or not? And then it just sparks a really weird debate that really opens students up and gets them a little bit of that personal connection they've been missing. So that's one of my favorite things that really doesn't help us learn, but it definitely helps them open up so we can learn later in the session.
Well, that's a really wise way to look at that because you're opening up the conversation. I would think if I was a student in a physics course and with all the math that you're describing, I would just be pretty much frozen and I'd almost be afraid to talk. And it sounds like you think that getting them to talk, even if it's about a hot dog or something else, you are helping them to start to talk, see that it's safe. You're opening up yourself, and that's the first step in learning is setting the context that is friendly and supportive.
Absolutely. And especially in MavPASS, one of our main focuses is letting them know that this is for students, by students, and we want them to run the session. I'm just here to facilitate your guys' learning. And so letting them open up at the beginning really sets the tone for the rest of the semester.
How do you deal with the issue that they may be tempted to just try to turn it into a question answer session where they want to ask a question and you provide an answer?
That is always tough. The woman who runs MavPass, Laura Jacoby, is amazing at giving us strategies to deal with just that. When we have our training at the beginning of the year and throughout the year, she gives us so many facilitation skills that I use basically every day just to remind students that they're here to help themselves. And my favorite is redirecting questions and wait time. Those are my two favorite. Wait time is just they ask me a question or they give me an answer and I just won't say yes or no. And my favorite thing is they start to backtrack, they start to explain their answer, second guess themselves. Other students jump in. So that's one main way that I try not to answer questions directly because then they're learning themselves. And that goes into redirecting the question as well.
Well, I had heard from a couple of the other leaders that this issue about wait time is a real important one that Dr. Jacoby emphasizes for you. And as a former faculty member, it was one of the hardest things for me to practice of answering my own questions. You have set yourself up well for a future career as a teacher because you can incorporate all these wonderful things that you've learned as a past leader into a future teaching career. So well done.
Yes, I'm
Um,
very excited.
yes. Well, let's turn around. We've been kind of talking about the program, talking about the impact on the students. Well, now, as we're getting here towards the end, my question is based on your experience as a study group leader, how are you developing personally and professionally?
That is a great question. We actually do a lot of talking about this in MavPass, and I never really think about how much I am growing being a leader in my third semester now. But looking back, it's giving me more than just leadership skills, more than just teaching like experience. The program is so independent on my side. I go to my own lectures, I write my own material, I run my own sessions. It's giving me such an ability to take in knowledge and then have to give it out in a way that makes sense to students, which, as you're probably aware with teaching, can be so difficult, especially with such a difficult topic. Also, the way it just helps with my communication to people, which as a STEM major, sometimes I struggle with, as many of us do, and it's something that I'll need for the rest of my life. Just being able to be comfortable with people, with speaking, with being in that leadership role is one of the main things that I'm taking away for sure.
Wow, that's a lot. Please make sure you reflect that on your resume or CV and your application letters for graduate school, as well as for future career as a teacher. Sometimes it's easy to not think about what is it that you receive directly from this personally and professionally. And I think you did a nice job of articulating that. My final question is really one to turn it back over to you. You have an audience out here of a couple hundred people who are study group managers as well as study group leaders. What would you like to say to them? Just kind of as a parting word. It can be something that you know, something that you've learned, but what would be something that you could leave with them and let you be the final word?
I would just say that as a student and as a leader, programs like this, going above and beyond for students, as students, I really don't think we understand the impact that it has. I go to MavPASS and I know how much it helps, and I've seen the growth not only in knowledge but in character. So anyone who has contributed or is contributing, trying to go, any of that, it really does make an impact. And it was so exciting and is so exciting to see it grow here and at other universities.
Well, thank you very much, Sam. And I appreciate your time, and I'm sure everyone listening does as well. So,
Thank you
best
so much.
wishes. Well, absolutely. Best wishes for the semester, completing years of preparation work, and then a wonderful future in front of you. Thank you.
Thank you very much.